Imagine the weight of a crown, not just the physical gold and jewels pressing down, but the crushing responsibility of legacy. For Charles, King of England, that weight became unbearable in the summer of 2025. He was a man caught between two powerful forces: the enduring memory of his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, and the woman he had loved, battled for, and finally crowned beside him, Camilla, the Queen Consort. What happened behind the palace walls that summer wasn't just a family drama. It was a seismic event that threatened to shake the very foundation of the House of Windsor. Charles, at 76, had finally ascended to the throne, a position he'd waited for his entire life. He carried with him the weight of his mother's extraordinary reign, a reign defined by unwavering duty and a deep connection to tradition. He also carried the baggage of his own past, his tumultuous marriage to Diana, and the years of public disapproval surrounding his relationship with Camilla. He'd weathered the storms, and against all odds, brought Camilla into the fold, securing her place as Queen Consort. But could even their love withstand the ultimate test, the sanctity of the Queen's legacy? The first crack appeared in a seemingly innocuous file, a report from Clarence House, Camilla's official residence. Charles, a meticulous man of routine, discovered within its pages a plan so audacious, so potentially destructive, that it left him reeling. Camilla, it seemed, had taken it upon herself to modernize the royal finances by rearranging the late queen's possessions. Now, on the surface, this might sound like a sensible streamlining of assets, but the devil, as always, was in the details. The documents detailed the transfer of management rights for everything from the crown jewels, those glittering symbols of British power, to the Queen's beloved Scottish estates, the places where she found solace amidst the pressures of royal life. Even personal items displayed in the palace were slated for reassignment. The language was polished, reasonable, even philanthropic, with talk of public accessibility and charitable funding. But one line, stark and unforgivable, leaped off the page. Approved, Camilla, Queen Consort. There was no space for the king's approval, no consultation, not even a courtesy email. It was a fait accompli, a power play that struck at the very heart of Charles's authority and his devotion to his mother's memory. Memories flooded him, private conversations with Queen Elizabeth at Windsor Castle, her unwavering emphasis on safeguarding the royal legacy. "Charles, you must protect what I leave behind," she'd said, her voice gentle but firm. "These are not just material objects, but the soul of the dynasty." And now, Camilla, the woman he loved, had dared to tamper with that soul, without his consent, behind his back. The question that haunted him was, how far had she gone? Was this a genuine attempt to help? A misguided effort to lighten his load? Or was it something more sinister? A calculated grab for power? A move to establish her own dynasty within the House of Windsor? The sun, which had been streaming so brightly through the study window, suddenly seemed to cast long, ominous shadows. A storm was brewing, and at its center stood Charles, torn between his love for Camilla and his duty to his crown and his mother's memory. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine not only the fate of their marriage, but the future of the monarchy itself. Charles summoned Camilla to Buckingham Palace that evening. He requested she come alone, without her usual retinue. He needed to understand the depth of this deception, and he needed to do it away from the prying eyes and whispering ears of the court. Camilla arrived at the palace, a nervous energy radiating from her. She tried to play it cool, offering a light greeting, inquiring about his day, but Charles was having none of it. He held the file, the damning evidence, in his hand like a weapon. He confronted her, his voice low and controlled, but laced with a barely suppressed fury. He wanted to know why. Why she would betray his trust, why she would disregard his wishes, why she would dare to tamper with his mother's legacy. Camilla, initially defiant, attempted to rationalize her action. She claimed she was only trying to help, to modernize the monarchy, to free up resources for charitable causes, particularly those close to Charles's heart. She played the dutiful wife, the supportive partner, trying to paint herself as a forward-thinking queen consort, burdened by the weight of outdated traditions. But Charles wasn't buying. He saw through the carefully constructed facade, the polished rhetoric. He knew his mother's possessions weren't just odds and ends to be sorted at will. They were imbued with history, with memory, with the very essence of the royal line. He accused her of overstepping her authority, of acting without his consent, of treating him as if he had no say in the matter. Camilla, sensing the tide turning against her, shifted her tactics. She accused Charles of being trapped in the past, of clinging to outdated traditions, of failing to recognize the need for change. She argued that the monarchy had to evolve to remain relevant and that her actions were necessary to ensure its survival. It was a clever argument, playing on Charles's own progressive tendencies, his desire to modernize the institution, but it was also a dangerous one. It implied that she knew better than him, that she was more capable of guiding the monarchy into the future. Charles, already reeling from the betrayal, bristled at the suggestion. He felt as if his own wife was questioning his fitness to rule. The argument escalated, the tension in the room thick enough to cut with a knife. Charles, his voice rising, accused Camilla of being power-hungry, of trying to build her own sphere of influence, of undermining his authority. Camilla, her voice trembling, accused Charles of being ungrateful, of failing to appreciate her efforts, of treating her as an outsider. Finally, Charles, exhausted and heartbroken, turned to leave. He couldn't bear to look at her any longer. He felt betrayed, not just as a king, but as a husband. As he walked away, he knew that their marriage, once a symbol of enduring love, was teetering on the brink of collapse. He was losing his grip, not just on the estate, but on the woman he had loved for decades. Meanwhile, Camilla, alone by the fire, felt a sharp pang of regret. She had given up so much to be with Charles, to become queen consort. She had endured years of public scrutiny, of being branded the other woman. And now, because of one file, one ill-conceived plan, everything was at risk. She had underestimated Charles's devotion to his mother's legacy, his commitment to tradition. She had believed she could manipulate him, that she could use her position to advance her own agenda. But she had been wrong, terribly, devastatingly wrong. Clarence's house, usually her sanctuary, felt like a gilded cave. Camilla, desperate, needed a confidant, someone who understood her ambition and could help salvage the situation. She turned to her sister, Annabelle Elliott, the interior designer with a knack for royal connections and a quiet hunger for more. Their meeting was clandestine, hushed tones in a drawing room thick with unspoken anxieties. Camilla laid bare her plan, the real plan, far beyond the modernization she'd sold Charles. It was about securing her family's future, about creating a legacy for the Parker Bowles name, independent of the Windsor's ancient constraints, liquidating certain treasures, diverting funds into a private real estate venture, luxury resorts in Wiltshire and Scotland, designed by Annabelle, curated by her children, a bold, audacious power play. Annabelle, initially hesitant, was seduced by the vision, the resorts, the prestige, the financial security, but she also recognized the danger. Charles was suspicious, and Princess Anne, ever the loyal daughter, was a bloodhound on the scent of trouble. Camilla brushed aside her concern. She was the queen consort after all. She had the power to reshape things. This was their chance. But even as they plotted, a loyal servant, Mary, a long-serving maid with unwavering devotion to the late queen, overheard their conversation. The betrayal was too much to bear. Mary, risking everything, contacted Princess Anne, relaying the details of Camilla's scheme. Anne, predictably, exploded. She stormed into Clarence's house, confronting Camilla with the ferocity of a cornered lioness. Accusations flew, insults were exchanged. Anne, fueled by righteous anger, vowed to expose Camilla's treachery. Camilla, defiant and desperate, lashed out, accusing Anne of jealousy, of clinging to the past. The confrontation ended with Anne's dramatic exit, but the damage was done. The secrets were out in the open, the battle lines were drawn. Anne, not one to wait for justice, launched her own investigation, enlisting the help of a trusted aide, Edward, a man with deep connections and a talent for uncovering hidden truth. Edward, with his network of informants and access to encrypted emails and offshore accounts, quickly pieced together the puzzle. The real estate fund, the flow of money, the involvement of Annabelle, Tom, and Laura. It was all there, laid bare in black and white. The green investments were a smokescreen, a cynical attempt to exploit Charles's environmental passions. Anne, armed with irrefutable evidence, confronted Charles. She presented him with the documents, the emails, the financial records. The truth, undeniable and devastating, shattered Charles's world. He was heartbroken, betrayed, and enraged. His mother's legacy, the very soul of the dynasty, was being used to line the pockets of Camilla's family. Rage consumed. He summoned Camilla, giving her one last chance to confess. She denied it, clinging to her lies, pleading for his forgiveness. But Charles had reached his breaking. He called an emergency meeting. Anne, William, and Camilla. The royal tribunal was in session. Under the cold gaze of the palace chandeliers, the truth was laid bare. Camilla, finally cornered, confessed, begging for mercy. But it was too late. Anne, unforgiving, demanded justice. William, ever the dutiful heir, echoed her sentiments. Charles, his voice trembling with grief and fury, delivered his verdict. Camilla was banished from royal life, stripped of her privileges, exiled to Highgrove, the country estate that once symbolized their love. The scheme was exposed, the legacy protected, but the cost was immense. A marriage shattered, a family torn apart, and the monarchy forever scarred by betrayal.